$40. That was all Jedediah McAllister had left in this world. $40 and a broken heart he'd carried for 5 years. But when he saw that boy throw himself in front of his sister, fists raised against a man 3 times his size, Jed's hand moved before his mind could stop it. "I'll take both of them." The auctioneer's hammer froze. 300 people went silent. And somewhere in that crowd, a wealthy rancher's face twisted with rage. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Now settle in. What happened next will change everything you believe about family. The boy's fist connected with a man's jaw before anyone could react. Caleb Bremen, 12 years old and barely 80 pounds soaking wet, had just punched Cornelius Whitfield III square in the face. "You ain't touching her." Caleb's voice cracked, but his stance held firm. He positioned himself between the wealthy rancher and his 8-year-old sister, like a wolf guarding the last of its pack. "You hear me? You ain't taking her nowhere without me." The crowd at the Silverbow stockyard gasped. 300 people pressed against the wooden rails, watching the chaos unfold on the auction platform. Mothers pulled their children closer. Men exchanged uncomfortable glances. Nobody moved to help. Whitfield touched his split lip, stared at the blood on his fingertips. His eyes went cold. "Somebody restrain this animal." 2 of Whitfield's ranch hands stepped forward. Big men. Cattle workers with shoulders like oxen and hands that could snap a boy's arm without effort. Caleb didn't back down. He raised his fists higher. "Caleb, please." The small voice came from behind him. His sister Hannah, 8 years old, clutching a threadbare doll that had lost most of its hair. Tears streamed down her face, cutting tracks through the dust on her cheeks.
"Please don't let them hurt you."
"Ain't nobody hurting nobody." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Long as they stay away from you." "The girl comes with me." Whitfield adjusted his expensive coat, acting like he hadn't just been struck by a child half his size. "I've already paid $15. The transaction is complete." "Then give him back his money." Caleb spat the words. "She ain't going." Augustus Pemberton, the placement coordinator, shuffled his papers nervously. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the mild June morning. "Now, son, let's be reasonable. Mr. Whitfield has provided a perfectly suitable home for your sister. His wife needs help with the household, and Hannah will receive proper care, education." "His wife needs a servant." Caleb's eyes never left Whitfield. "And you're selling her one." The crowd murmured. Someone coughed. The uncomfortable truth hung in the air like gun smoke. Pemberton's face reddened. "These are legitimate placements."
The Wyoming Territorial Orphan Asylum follows all proper protocols.
"You put us on a stage like cattle," Caleb's voice rose. "You let people poke at us, check our teeth, squeeze our arms. That man," he pointed at a farmer near the front, "asked if I was strong enough to clear stumps. That woman wanted to know if Hannah could cook and clean. Nobody asked our names. Nobody asked what we wanted." "What you want isn't relevant." Whitfield stepped closer, looming over the boy. "You're orphans. You have no parents, no home, no rights. The territory decides what happens to you, and the territory has decided." "The territory can go to hell!" Another gasp from the crowd. A woman fainted, or pretended to. One of Whitfield's men grabbed Caleb's arm. The boy twisted, fought, kicked at the man's shins. The second ranch hand moved toward Hannah. She screamed. The sound cut through the stockyard like a knife. High and terrified, and heartbreakingly young. The scream of a child who'd already lost everything and was about to lose the only thing she had left. Caleb fought harder. Blood appeared on his lip where the first ranch hand had backhanded him. But he kept struggling, kept trying to reach his sister, kept screaming her name. "Hannah! Hannah, I'm coming! Don't touch her! Don't you dare!" "I'll take both of them." The voice came from the back of the crowd, quiet, but somehow cutting through all the noise like a blade through butter. Everyone turned. Jedediah McAllister stood at the fence, one boot on the lower rail, $40 crumpled in his fist. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing clothes that had seen better days, and a face that had seen worse. A scar ran along his jaw. His eyes were the gray of storm clouds, and right now they were fixed on the platform with an intensity that made several people step back. "I said I'll take both of them." He climbed over the fence, started walking toward the platform. "Boy and girl together, $40, right now." Pemberton blinked. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Jedediah McAllister. I've got a ranch 15 miles north." He kept walking. "And I've got $40 that says those two children stay together." "Mr. McAllister." Pemberton's voice took on a patient, condescending tone. "The girl has already been placed. Mr. Whitfield has paid $15. Jed reached the platform steps. "I'll pay $25 for her, plus $15 for the boy. That's $40 total, more than Whitfield offered." "This isn't about money." Whitfield's face had gone purple. "I made a legitimate claim. The paperwork is signed." "Then unsign it." "You can't simply—" Jed stepped onto the platform. He was taller than Whitfield by several inches, broader by more. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that only those closest could hear. "I watched you grab that little girl like she was property. I watched your men bloody a 12-year-old boy for trying to protect his sister. I watched you stand there in your fancy coat and talk about rights while two children begged not to be separated." He leaned closer. "You want to talk about what I can and cannot do? Try me." Whitfield's hand moved toward his hip, toward the pistol that every wealthy rancher in the territory carried. Jed's hand was faster, not drawing his own weapon, but catching Whitfield's wrist in a grip that made the man wince. "Don't." The word was barely a whisper. "There are children present." For a long moment, nobody breathed. Then Pemberton cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, please. This is a civilized proceeding." Jed released Whitfield's wrist, stepped back. His eyes found Caleb, who was staring at him with a mix of suspicion and desperate hope. "You want to keep your sister with you?" Caleb nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "Then get her and come stand behind me." "Why should I trust you?" "Smart kid." Jed almost smiled. "You shouldn't. You don't know me from Adam. But right now, I'm the only person in this whole damn stockyard trying to keep you together. So you can take your chances with me, or you can watch them drag your sister off to Whitfield's place while his men hold you down." Caleb's jaw worked. His eyes darted to Hannah, who was still crying, still clutching her doll, still looking at him like he was the only solid thing in a world that kept crumbling. "Hannah, come here." She ran to him, wrapped her arms around his waist, and buried her face in his shirt. He kept one arm around her, his other fist still raised, still ready to fight if he had to. Together, they moved behind Jed. Pemberton was shaking his head. "Mr. McAllister, I appreciate your enthusiasm. But there are procedures, background checks, home inspections. We can't simply hand children over to any stranger who waves money around." "You were about to hand that girl over to Whitfield." "Miss Whitfield is a respected member of the community. He has references, property, a wife—" "I've got property." Jed pulled papers from his coat. "Deed to 200 acres in Bitterroot Valley. Registered and legal. I've got a house, a barn, horses, and enough food to last the summer." He held the papers out. "I've also got $40 and two children who don't want to be separated. What else do you need?" Pemberton took the papers reluctantly, examined them with the expression of a man looking for any excuse to say no. "You're not married?" "No." "A single man raising two children, one of them a girl? It's unconventional." Lots of things are unconventional. Doesn't make them wrong. The board will have concerns. The board can inspect my place anytime they want. They'll find 2 kids with beds, food, and a roof over their heads. They'll find a man who gives a damn whether they live or die. Jed's voice hardened. That's more than most of these folks are offering. Whitfield had been conferring with his men. Now he stepped forward again, his composure recovered, his voice smooth. This is ridiculous. The man is clearly unstable. He threatened me. He disrupted official proceedings, and he has no experience with children whatsoever. I had a son once. The words fell like stones into still water. Jed didn't elaborate, didn't explain, just stood there with that grief carved into his face, visible for anyone who knew how to look. Pemberton's expression shifted. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. Mr. McAllister. His name was William. Billy, we called him. He was 6 years old when the fever took him. Same fever that took my wife 3 days earlier. Jed's voice stayed steady, but his hands had curled into fists at his sides. I buried them both on the hill behind my cabin. Carved the headstones myself. The crowd had gone completely silent. That was 5 years ago. I've spent every day since then wondering why I'm still breathing when they're not. He looked at Caleb and Hannah. Today I saw 2 kids fighting to stay together the same way my family fought to stay alive. And I thought maybe this is why. Hannah's hand crept into his. Small, trembling, trusting. Jed looked down at her, felt something crack open in his chest that had been sealed shut for 5 years. Maybe I'm still here because somebody needs me to be. Pemberton removed his spectacles, rubbed his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, less official. The board will still need to conduct inspections, regular visits to ensure the children are being properly cared for. Fine. And Mr. Whitfield may file an appeal. He has that right under territorial law. Let him file whatever he wants. I'll be at every hearing, every inspection, every meeting. And those kids will be right beside me. Together. Whitfield stepped forward. Cornelius, you can't seriously consider. The offer is $40 for both children. Pemberton cut him off. Mr. McAllister's documentation appears to be in order. The children have expressed a clear preference to remain together. He looked at Whitfield. Unless you'd like to match the offer and take both of them? Whitfield's face contorted. Take both? The boy who'd just punched him? The scrawny, wild-eyed troublemaker who'd rather fight than submit? I have no interest in the boy. Then we have no conflict. Pemberton stamped the papers. Mr. McAllister, the children are in your custody pending standard review. You'll sign the placement documents at my office within the hour. He handed Jed a receipt. Congratulations. You're a father again. The ride out of Silver Bow took them through the center of town. Jed's wagon creaked along the main street, past the general store, past the Methodist church, past the saloon where men gathered on the porch to watch them go. Caleb sat rigid beside him on the driver's bench. Hannah was in the wagon bed, wrapped in a blanket Jed had brought, her doll clutched against her chest. Nobody spoke for the first mile. Finally, Caleb broke the silence. Why did you do it? Jed kept his eyes on the road. Do what? Don't play stupid. You spent every cent you had on 2 kids you never met. Why? Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you are. Caleb's voice was hard, suspicious. Or maybe you're like the others. Maybe you want something. Jed pulled the wagon to a stop, turned to face the boy fully. You want to know what I want? I want to go home, feed my horses, and figure out how I'm going to keep 3 people alive on a ranch that barely supports 1. That's what I want. Then why? Because I couldn't watch it happen again. Caleb blinked. Watch what happen? Jed's jaw tightened. He stared at the horizon for a long moment before answering. I told you I had a son. What I didn't tell you is how he died. The fever took my wife first, Margaret. Maggie, I called her. She was everything good in my life. When she got sick, I thought if I just worked hard enough, prayed hard enough, she'd pull through. His voice roughened. She didn't. 3 days, that's all it took. 3 days and she was gone, and Billy was screaming for his mama and I couldn't tell him, couldn't make him understand. He was 6 years old. How do you explain death to a 6-year-old? Hannah had crawled forward in the wagon bed. Her hand found Jed's shoulder. Then Billy got sick, same fever, and I rode 40 miles through a storm to get the doctor, and he came, and he tried, and it wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough. His hands gripped the reins so hard his knuckles went white. I buried them both on the same hill, same view of the mountains. I thought maybe if they could see the same sunset, they wouldn't be so alone. Caleb was staring at him. The suspicion in his eyes had shifted to something else. Something like recognition. I've spent 5 years in that cabin, talking to ghosts, wondering why I survived when they didn't. And today I saw you, standing on that platform, fists up, ready to fight the whole world to keep your sister safe. He looked at the boy, and I thought, that's what I would have done. That's what any father would do. And I thought, maybe that's why I'm still here. Maybe somebody needs me to do for them what I couldn't do for my own. Silence. Then Hannah's small voice. I'm sorry about Billy. Jed's throat closed up. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Mister, Caleb said slowly, I don't trust easy. Folks have made us promises before, said they'd keep us together, said they'd take care of us. They lied, every single one of them. I know. So don't lie to us. If you're going to get tired of us, if you're going to change your mind, if you're going to send us back, tell us now. Don't make promises you can't keep. Jed met the boy's eyes, saw the fear underneath the bravado, the desperate hope he was trying so hard to hide. I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to hear it. He waited until he had both children's attention. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be good at this, or if I'm going to mess it up, or if Whitfield is going to find some way to take you back. I can't promise you everything's going to be perfect. He paused. But I can promise you this. I will never, never let anyone separate you. Not while I'm breathing. That's not a maybe. That's not a we'll see. That's a fact. And if I have to fight every rancher, every bureaucrat, every judge in the territory to keep that promise, then that's exactly what I'll do. Hannah climbed over the bench seat and settled herself in Jed's lap, like she belonged there. Her small arms wrapped around his neck. Okay, she whispered. I believe you. Caleb watched them for a long moment. Then, slowly, something in his shoulders relaxed. Not much, just a fraction, but enough. Don't make me regret it. Jed clicked his tongue, and the wagon started moving again. Behind them, Silverbow disappeared into the distance. Ahead, the road wound through the valley toward the mountains. Toward home. The cabin appeared as the sun touched the peaks of the Ruby Mountains. Small, weathered, smoke rising from the chimney where Jed had left the stove burning low. That's it? Caleb's voice was carefully neutral. That's the ranch? That's home. Caleb said nothing, but Jed caught him looking at the hills, at the meadow, at the horses in the corral. looking like a starving man presented with a feast, afraid to believe it was real. Hannah had fallen asleep against Jed's chest. He carried her into the cabin while Caleb followed, suspicious eyes scanning every corner. The place was simple. 3 rooms, a wooden floor, a potbelly stove that kept the whole space warm. A table with 3 chairs, one of them still small, still the size he'd made for Billy years ago. Caleb noticed. His gaze lingered on the small chair, then moved to the mantel, where 2 photographs sat in simple frames. A woman with kind eyes and dark hair, a boy with his father's jaw and his mother's smile.
"That's them?" Caleb asked quietly.
Your family? That's them.
You kept their pictures.
Course I did. Jed laid Hannah gently on the bed in the back room, covered her with a quilt. Some things you don't let go of. When he came back, Caleb was still standing in the middle of the room, looking lost, like he didn't know whether to sit, stand, or run. You hungry? The boy shrugged. I'm fine. That's not what I asked. When's the last time you ate? A pause. Yesterday. The church gave us bread before the auction. Jed's jaw tightened. He moved to the stove, started pulling out pots and provisions. Beans, salt pork, cornbread from the day before. Sit down. I'm making food. You don't have to. Sit down. Caleb sat. Jed worked in silence, stirring, heating, slicing. The smells filled the cabin. Smoke and meat and the warm, yeasty scent of bread. Simple food, but real, solid. He set a plate in front of Caleb, piled high. More food than the boy had probably seen in weeks. Eat. Caleb stared at the plate. His hands trembled. There's more when that's gone. The boy looked up. More? Much as you want. That's how it works here. You're hungry, you eat. You're tired, you sleep. You need something, you ask. Jed sat down across from him. That's not complicated. Caleb picked up his fork, put it down, picked it up again. What do you want us to do? To earn it? Earn what? The food, the bed, all of it. The boy's voice was flat. The Hendersons made us earn everything. Work from sunup to sundown. Said if we didn't pull our weight, they'd send us back. The Morgans were the same. Nothing's free. There's always a catch. Jed leaned forward. Listen to me. You're 12 years old. Your job is to eat, sleep, learn, and grow. Help with chores when you can, sure, but not to earn your keep. Because your keep isn't something you have to earn. You're a kid. You're supposed to be taken care of. That's not a reward. That's a right. Caleb's eyes went bright. He looked away fast, but not fast enough. That's not how it's been. I know, and I'm sorry for that. But that's not how it's going to be here. The boy ate, slowly at first, then faster as his body remembered what hunger felt like and decided it wanted no more of it. Jed watched him, saw the sharp angles of his cheekbones, the hollows under his eyes. 12 years old, carrying the weight of a grown man. Where are your parents? Jed asked quietly. Your real ones. Caleb stopped chewing, set down his fork. Fever, same as yours. His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. Pa got sick first. Worked himself half to death trying to keep the farm going, even when he could barely stand. Said he had to provide for us. Said he couldn't stop. He swallowed hard. He dropped in the field one morning. Mama found him. She was already coughing by then, but she nursed him for 2 weeks straight. Didn't sleep, barely ate. When he died, she just gave up. like she'd been holding on for him, and once he was gone, there wasn't any point anymore. Jed said nothing, just listened. She made me promise, right before the end. She grabbed my hand and she said, "Keep them together, Caleb, no matter what. Keep your sister safe." His voice cracked. That was 3 months ago. We've been through 4 different placements since then. Every single one tried to split us up. Every single one. Not this one. Caleb looked at him. How do I know that? You don't. Jed held his gaze. But I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove it. The boy was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his fork and started eating again. Caleb? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For taking care of her, your sister. For fighting for her when nobody else would. Jed's voice roughened. That took courage. More than most grown men have. Caleb didn't respond, but something in his posture shifted. Just a little. Just enough. From the back room came a small sound. Hannah, stirring in her sleep. She has nightmares, Caleb said quietly. Every night. Calls out for Mama. Sometimes I can calm her down. Sometimes I can't. Then we'll figure it out together. Caleb nodded slowly. He finished his food, scraped the plate clean, looked at it like he was memorizing the pattern. Mr. McAllister? Just Jed. Jed. The boy tested the name. If you break your promise, if you let them take her, I'll never forgive you. I'll run, and I'll find her, and I'll never stop. You understand? I understand. Good. Caleb stood, carried his plate to the basin. Then I reckon we have a deal. Outside, the sun had fully set. The stars were coming out, thick and bright over the mountains. The horses shifted in their corral, settling in for the night. And inside the cabin, a man who'd lost everything, and 2 children who'd been lost themselves, sat in the warmth of the stove, strangers becoming something more. It wasn't a family yet. Not quite. The trust was too fragile, the wounds too fresh, the future too uncertain. But it was a start, and sometimes a start is all you need. The first week tested every ounce of patience Jed didn't know he had. Hannah woke screaming 3 nights in a row. The same nightmare, the same words torn from her throat in the darkness. Mama! Mama, don't go! Mama, please! Jed would stumble from his bedroll by the stove, still half asleep, and find Caleb already there, already holding her, already whispering the same words over and over. I'm here, Hannah. I'm right here. I ain't going nowhere. The third night, Jed stopped in the doorway, watched the boy rock his sister like he'd done it 1,000 times, like he'd been doing it for months, alone, with no one to help him. You should sleep, Jed kept his voice low. I can take over. She don't know you yet. Caleb didn't look up. She'll panic if she wakes and I'm not here. Then I'll sit with both of you. Caleb's arms tightened around Hannah. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Jed crossed the room, settled into the chair by the bed. I want to. The boy said nothing, but he didn't tell Jed to leave. They sat like that until Hannah's breathing steadied, until her grip on Caleb's shirt loosened, until she slipped back into something that looked almost like peaceful sleep. She used to sleep through the night. Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. Before, she was the happy one, always laughing, always singing. Drove me crazy sometimes how much noise she made. What changed? What do you think? The boy's jaw tightened. She watched Mama die, held her hand at the end because I was out trying to find the doctor. By the time I got back, it was over. Hannah was just sitting there, holding Mama's hand, not crying, not moving, just sitting. Jed's chest ached. She didn't speak for 2 weeks after that. Not a word. I thought maybe I'd lost her too, just in a different way. Caleb finally looked up. His eyes were red, but dry. Then one night she woke up screaming, and she hasn't stopped since. She'll heal. Kids are stronger than we think. Are they? The question was sharp, bitter. Because I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm holding together with spit and prayers, and any minute now, it's all going to fall apart. Jed leaned forward. You want to know a secret? Caleb waited. That's how every parent feels. Every single one. We're all just making it up as we go, hoping we don't mess it up too bad. He paused. The difference is, you're 12. You shouldn't have to feel that way yet. That's my job now. Your job? Yeah, my job. Jed stood, put a hand on the boy's shoulder. You've been carrying this family alone for 3 months. You did good, better than good. But you don't have to carry it alone anymore. Caleb stared at him. Something flickered across his face, too fast to name. Get some sleep, Jed said. I'll watch over her. But that wasn't a suggestion. The boy hesitated. Then, slowly, he lay down beside his sister, one arm still draped protectively across her. Jed sat in the chair and watched them sleep. 2 children who'd lost everything, learning to trust a stranger who'd lost just as much. It wasn't much, but it was something. Morning brought new challenges. Hannah wouldn't eat. She sat at the table, staring at the plate of eggs Jed had made, her fork untouched, her eyes distant. Hannah, Caleb's voice was gentle. You need to eat something. I'm not hungry. You said that yesterday, and the day before. I'm still not hungry. Jed watched the exchange. The careful way Caleb approached his sister, like she was made of glass. The flat, empty quality in Hannah's voice that didn't match an 8-year-old at all. What did you eat back home? Jed asked. Before. What was your favorite? Hannah blinked. What? Your favorite food. What did your mama make that you loved? The girl's lower lip trembled. Mama made biscuits with honey every Sunday morning. Biscuits with honey, Jed nodded. I can do that. You can? Sure. Might not be as good as your mama's, but I'll try. He stood, moved to the stove. You want to help me? Hannah looked at Caleb. Caleb looked at Jed. Something passed between them, silent and uncertain. Okay. Hannah slid off her chair. I can help. It took an hour. The first batch burned. The second came out flat as pancakes. But the third came out golden and fluffy, and when Jed drizzled honey over them and set the plate in front of Hannah, she took a bite. Then another. Then another. It's not the same. Her voice was small. But it's good. That's all I was hoping for. She ate 3 biscuits. Caleb ate 5. Jed watched them both with something warm spreading through his chest. Can we make them again tomorrow? Hannah asked. We can make them whenever you want. She almost smiled. Not quite, but almost. Progress. The days found their rhythm. Mornings were for chores. Jed showed Caleb how to feed the horses, how to check their hooves, how to read the weather by the way they moved. The boy learned fast, asked smart questions, remembered everything. You're good with them, Jed said, watching Caleb brush down the mare. The horses. They trust you. Animals are easier than people. Caleb didn't look up. They don't lie. No, they don't. Pa said I had a gift. Said I could gentle any horse, no matter how wild. His hands slowed on the brush. He was going to teach me to break colts this summer. Before. Jed let the silence stretch. Then, I could teach you, if you want. Caleb's head came up. You'd do that? Why wouldn't I? Because, the boy struggled for words. Because you don't owe us anything. You already spent all your money. You don't have to do more. Caleb. Jed moved closer, leaned against the stall door. Listen to me. I didn't buy you at that auction. I know that's what it looked like. I know that's what Pemberton wrote on his papers. But that's not what happened. Then what did happen? I made a choice. I saw two kids who needed help, and I chose to help them. That's not debt. That's not obligation. That's family. The word hung between them. We're not your family. Caleb's voice was careful. We're strangers. You were strangers a week ago. Jed straightened. What are you now? Caleb didn't answer, but he didn't argue either. That afternoon, Jed started teaching him to break colts. Hannah found her own place in the rhythm. She adopted the barn cat within 3 days, named it Biscuit, after the breakfast she'd learned to make. Carried it everywhere, talked to it constantly, treated it like the most important creature in the territory. Biscuit doesn't like loud noises, she informed Jed solemnly. So you have to be quiet when you hammer. I'll keep that in mind. And Biscuit needs milk every morning. Fresh milk. From the cow. We don't have a cow. Hannah's face fell. Oh. But, Jed added quickly, I could get one. Eventually. When we have more money. When will that be? I don't know. But I'll work on it. She considered this. Then, okay, I'll tell Biscuit to be patient. She wandered off, cat in her arms, chattering about patience and cows and the proper care of feline companions. Caleb appeared at Jed's elbow. You're going to get a cow? If I can. We don't have money for a cow. I know. Jed rubbed the back of his neck. But she looked so disappointed. So you're going to figure out how to afford a cow just because an 8-year-old asked for one? Yeah, I guess I am. Caleb shook his head. But there was something in his expression that hadn't been there before. Something that looked almost like respect. You're a strange man, Jed McAllister. So I've been told. The peace lasted 12 days. On the 13th day, a rider appeared on the road. Jed spotted him first. A dark shape moving slow and steady through the summer heat, coming from the direction of Silver Bow. Caleb. He kept his voice calm. Take your sister inside. The boy didn't argue. He grabbed Hannah's hand and pulled her toward the cabin, ignoring her protests about Biscuit and interrupted playtime. Jed walked to the fence, waited. The rider drew closer. Not Whitfield, not Pemberton. Someone else. A man in a dust-colored coat, riding a horse worth more than Jed's entire property. He stopped at the fence, tipped his hat. Mr. McAllister. Who's asking? Name's Crawford. I work for Mr. Whitfield. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. He sent me with a message. I don't want any messages from Whitfield. Nonetheless, Crawford reached into his coat, pulled out an envelope. He wanted you to have this. Said it concerns the children. Jed didn't move. What kind of message needs a special rider? The kind Mr. Whitfield prefers to deliver personally. But since you're, resistant to personal meetings, he sent me instead. Crawford held out the envelope. I'd read it if I were you. Mr. Whitfield is not a patient man. Jed took the envelope, didn't open it. Anything else? Just some friendly advice. Crawford leaned forward in his saddle. Mr. Whitfield always gets what he wants. Always. The smart play is to give him the girl now, while he's still willing to compensate you for your trouble. Wait too long, and he might decide compensation is no longer necessary. Is that a threat? It's reality. Crawford straightened. Good day, Mr. McAllister. I expect we'll see each other again soon. He turned his horse and rode back the way he'd come. Jed stood at the fence until the rider disappeared over the ridge. Then he opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Expensive paper, the kind rich men use to make poor men feel small. The letter was brief. Mr. McAllister, I am prepared to offer you $200 for the girl. This is far more than she is worth, but I am a generous man. Accept this offer within 7 days, and there will be no further complications. Refuse, and I will pursue every legal avenue available to me. The Territorial Board meets next month. I have friends on that board. Many friends. Consider carefully. Cornelius Whitfield III. Jed read the letter twice. Then he walked to the stove, opened the door, and fed the paper to the flames. Caleb was watching from the doorway. What did it say? Nothing that matters. Jed, he offered money for Hannah. I said no. The boy went pale. He's not going to stop. No, he's not. What are we going to do? Jed watched the letter burn to ash. We're going to fight. How? He's rich. He's got connections. He's got... I don't care what he's got. Jed turned to face the boy. I made you a promise. Remember? Nobody separates you, not while I'm breathing. Promises don't stop men like Whitfield. No, but I do. Caleb stared at him. The fear in his eyes was raw, undisguised. You can't beat him. Nobody beats him. Watch me. The next morning, Jed rode into Silver Bow. He went to the sheriff's office first. Marcus Boone was behind his desk, feet up, hat over his eyes. He looked up when Jed walked in. McAllister, heard you took in those Brennan kids. Word travels fast. Small town. Boone swung his feet down. What can I do for you? Jed pulled out the envelope. It was empty now, but the paper itself told a story. Whitfield sent a man to my ranch yesterday, made some threats, offered to buy Hannah from me like she was livestock. Boone's expression didn't change. That's not illegal. Making threats isn't illegal? Depends on the threat. Did he say he was going to hurt you? Hurt the children? He said he'd pursue every legal avenue. Said he had friends on the Territorial Board. That's not a threat. That's politics. Boone leaned back in his chair. Look, McAllister, I don't like Whitfield any more than you do. Man's a snake in a fancy suit. But he's a rich snake, and rich snakes know how to stay inside the law while they squeeze the life out of people. So you're not going to help? I'm telling you there's nothing I can do. Not yet. He breaks an actual law, you come find me. Until then, Boone shrugged. Keep your head down. Don't give him ammunition. Jed's jaw tightened. That's your advice? Keep my head down? That's reality. Boone met his eyes. You want to fight Whitfield? You better have more than righteous anger. You better have money, connections, and a damn good lawyer. You got any of those? Jed didn't answer. Didn't think so. Boone put his feet back up. Close the door on your way out. Jed's next stop was the newspaper office. Clara Sutton was bent over a printing press when he walked in, her hands stained with ink, her hair escaping from its pins. She looked up, pushed a strand out of her eyes. Mr. McAllister, I heard about the auction. Bold move. You wrote about the orphan trains last year. The article in the Montana Pioneer. I did. Her eyes sharpened. Why? Because I need someone to write about what's happening now. Jed stepped closer. Whitfield is trying to take one of my children. Offering money, making threats, pulling strings with the Territorial Board. I need people to know. Clara set down her tools. Tell me everything. He told her. The auction. Caleb's punch, the placement papers, Crawford's visit, the letter, all of it. When he finished, Clara was quiet for a long moment. "You know, Whitfield owns half the businesses in this town," she finally said. "He's got advertisers who pay my bills. If I write this story, he'll pull every one of them." "I know." "I could lose the paper." "I know." She looked at him, really looked. "Why should I risk everything for two children I've never met?" Jed thought about the question, thought about Caleb fighting grown men to protect his sister, about Hannah waking up screaming for a mother who couldn't answer, about two kids who'd lost everything and were about to lose more. "Because somebody should," he said quietly. "Because if people like Whitfield can buy children without consequences, then none of us are safe. Because the only thing evil needs is for good people to do nothing." Clara was silent. Then she picked up her pen. "Tell me their names again, the children." "Caleb, Hannah. Caleb and Hannah Brennan." She wrote it down. "I can't promise anything," she said, "but I'll look into it, see what I can find. That's all I'm asking." "No, it isn't." Clara met his eyes. "You're asking me to pick a side, and I want you to understand something, Mr. McAllister. Once I pick, I don't unpick. So you better be sure you're telling me the truth, the whole truth. Because if I find out you're playing me, I'll bury you right alongside Whitfield." "I'm telling the truth." "Then we'll see." She gestured toward the door. "I'll be in touch." Jed rode home with something that felt almost like hope. It didn't last. He was still a mile from the ranch when he saw the smoke. Not from the chimney, from the barn. He spurred his horse into a gallop, heart pounding, mind racing through every terrible possibility. Fire. The horses. The children. The children. He rounded the last bend and saw them. Caleb and Hannah, standing in the yard, watching the barn doors hang open on broken hinges. Smoke curled from inside, thin but unmistakable. Jed leaped from the saddle before the horse fully stopped. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "We're fine." Caleb's voice was flat, hard. "They came while you were gone. 3 men, had bandanas over their faces." "Who? What did they do?" "Set fire to the hay." The boy's fists were clenched at his sides. "I got the horses out, put out the flames before they spread. But they took things. Tools, tack, the saddle you just repaired." Jed looked at the barn, at the broken doors, at the thin wisps of smoke still rising from the scorched hay. "Did they hurt you? Either of you?" "No, they just—" Caleb's voice cracked. "They said this was a warning. Said next time would be worse." Hannah was crying, silent tears streaming down her face, biscuit clutched against her chest. Jed knelt in front of her. "Hannah, look at me. Are you okay?" She nodded, didn't speak. "Nobody's going to hurt you. You hear me? Nobody." "They said bad words." Her voice was tiny. "They said they were going to take me away. Make us sorry we ever came here." Jed's vision went red. He stood, walked to the barn, looked at the damage, the broken doors, the burned hay, the empty spaces where his tools had been. Then he walked back to the children. "Caleb, I need you to listen to me." The boy looked up. "I'm going to fix this. I'm going to find out who did this, and I'm going to make sure it never happens again. But right now, I need you to take your sister inside. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me. Can you do that?" "Where are you going?" "To have a conversation with Cornelius Whitfield." "Jed, don't." Caleb grabbed his arm. "That's what he wants. He wants you to do something stupid so he can have you arrested. Then he takes us for sure." The boy was right. Jed knew he was right. But the rage burning in his chest didn't care about right.
Please, Caleb's voice broke. Please don't leave us. Not like this. Not angry. Jed looked at the boy, at the fear in his eyes, at Hannah still crying, still clutching her cat like it was the only safe thing in the world. He took a breath. Then another. Okay, the word came out rough. Okay, I'm staying. Caleb's shoulders sagged with relief. But this isn't over. Jed put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Whitfield thinks he can scare me into giving up. He's wrong. He just made the worst mistake of his life. What are you going to do? Jed looked at the burned barn, at the broken doors, at all the damage that money and power had wrought. I'm going to win. That night, Jed sat at the table long after the children had gone to sleep. He had a piece of paper in front of him, a list, things he needed, money, witnesses, legal help, proof of Whitfield's threats. Things he had, a burned barn, 2 scared children, $40 worth of debt, and a stubbornness that bordered on stupid. The odds were impossible, he knew that. Whitfield had everything. He had nothing. But he'd made a promise. And Jedediah McAllister kept his promises. He picked up his pen and started to write. A letter to the Territorial Board. A formal complaint against Whitfield. A declaration of intent to fight every legal action with everything he had. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And sometimes, a start was all you needed. The letter to the Territorial Board went out 3 days after the barn fire. Jed didn't expect a response. Not really. Men like Whitfield owned the system, and the system protected its own. But he had to try. Had to do something other than wait for the next attack. What he didn't expect was Augustus Pemberton riding up to his ranch 6 days later. Mr. McAllister. Pemberton dismounted, clutching his leather portfolio like a shield. We need to talk. About what? About the formal complaint you filed against Cornelius Whitfield. Pemberton's voice was tight. Do you have any idea what you've done? I told the truth. You accuse one of the most powerful men in the territory of intimidation, property destruction, and attempting to purchase a child through coercion. Pemberton's face was pale. He's furious. He's demanding an emergency review of your placement. Jed's stomach dropped. On what grounds? On the grounds that you're unstable, violent, and unfit to care for children. Pemberton opened his portfolio, pulled out a stack of papers. He submitted 17 affidavits. 17! All from respected citizens claiming they witnessed erratic behavior, heard you make threats, saw you mistreat the children. That's a lie. Of course it's a lie, but lies with 17 signatures carry weight. Pemberton thrust the papers at him. The board has scheduled a hearing, 2 weeks from now, in Helena. If you lose, the children go back into territorial custody. And straight to Whitfield. Probably. Jed took the papers. His hands were steady, but his heart was pounding. What do I do? You find witnesses of your own. People who can testify to your character, to the children's welfare, to Whitfield's threats. Pemberton paused. And you pray that the board cares more about truth than politics. Do they? Pemberton didn't answer. Why are you telling me this? Jed studied the man's face. You work for the system. You could have just shown up at the hearing and watched me lose. Because I've seen what Whitfield does to children. Pemberton's voice dropped. I've placed dozens of orphans in homes across this territory. Most of them were good placements. But some... He stopped, swallowed. Some I knew were wrong. I knew, and I did it anyway, because the paperwork was in order, and the money was right.
And now? Now I'm tired of pretending that following rules makes something just. Pemberton met his eyes. I can't help you officially, but I can tell you what you're up against. And I can tell you that if you don't fight like hell, you're going to lose those children. Jed looked at the papers in his hands. 17 affidavits, 2 weeks, an impossible battle against an enemy with unlimited resources. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Pemberton mounted his horse. Win first, then thank me. He rode away without looking back. Jed found Caleb in the barn, brushing down the mare with slow, careful strokes. I heard. The boy didn't turn around. We're going to lose them, aren't we? The hearing. No. Don't lie to me. Now Caleb turned. His eyes were red. I heard what he said. 17 people are saying you're crazy. Whitfield's got the board in his pocket. We don't have money or lawyers or anything. We have the truth. The truth doesn't matter. Caleb's voice cracked. It never matters. Mama told the truth when she said Pa was too sick to work. The bank took the farm anyway. Pa told the truth when he said he'd get better. He died anyway. The truth is just words, and words don't stop men like Whitfield. Jed crossed the barn, took the brush from Caleb's hands, made the boy look at him. Listen to me. I know you're scared. I know you've been let down before. I know the world has given you every reason to believe that hope is just another word for disappointment. He paused. But I need you to believe in me anyway. Can you do that? Caleb's jaw trembled. What if I can't? Then believe in yourself. Believe in Hannah. Believe in the fact that you've survived everything life has thrown at you, and you're still standing. Jed's grip tightened on the boy's shoulders. We're going to fight this. Together. And maybe we'll lose. Maybe Whitfield will win, and they'll take you away and everything falls apart. But at least we'll have tried. At least we'll have gone down swinging instead of giving up. And if we win? Then we go home. We rebuild the barn. We get a cow for Hannah's cat to have fresh milk. Jed almost smiled. We become a family. A real one. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Okay. The word came out small, fragile. Okay. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Jed rode to Silver Bow every day, talking to anyone who would listen. Dr. Harwood agreed to testify about the children's health, about the care they'd received. Sheriff Boone grudgingly admitted he'd take the stand if subpoenaed. Clara Sutton kept digging, kept asking questions, kept finding small cracks in Whitfield's carefully constructed reputation. But it wasn't enough. Jed knew it wasn't enough. On the 8th day, a stranger arrived at the ranch. Jed was fixing the barn door when he heard the horse. He reached for his rifle, positioned himself between the approaching rider and the cabin where the children were. Easy, the rider raised both hands. I'm not here for trouble. He was older, weathered face, gray hair, eyes that had seen too much. Something about him looked familiar, but Jed couldn't place it. Who are you? Name's Patrick Brennan. The man dismounted slowly. I'm those children's uncle. Jed's grip on the rifle tightened. Caleb said you abandoned them, left them at the orphanage and never came back. I know what he said. I know what he believes. Patrick's voice cracked. And God help me, he's not wrong. Then why are you here? Because I read about the hearing in the newspaper, Clara Sutton's article. Patrick pulled a folded paper from his coat. She wrote about what you did at the auction, what you're doing now, fighting for them when nobody else would. Somebody had to. I should have been that somebody. Patrick's eyes were wet. I was supposed to take them. After my brother died, I was supposed to keep them safe. But I got sick. Same fever that killed Sean and Mary. Spent 3 months in a hospital in Denver, barely alive. By the time I recovered, they were gone. The asylum said they'd been placed. Records sealed. Nothing I could do. Jed studied the man's face, looking for lies, looking for deception. All he found was grief. I've been searching for 6 months, Patrick continued. Wrote letters to every orphanage in 3 territories, filed petitions, traveled hundreds of miles on rumors and dead ends. And then I saw the article, and I knew they were here. So you came. So I came. Patrick's voice steadied. Not to take them back. I can see they've got a home now, a real home. But I thought maybe I could help. Testify at the hearing. Tell them what kind of family the Brennans were, what kind of people their parents were. The cabin door opened. Hannah stepped onto the porch, Biscuit in her arms. "Caleb," she called back into the cabin. "There's a man here. He looks like Papa." Patrick made a sound, half sob, half laugh. Dear God, she looks just like Mary. Caleb appeared in the doorway. His face went white.
Uncle Patrick?
"Hello, Caleb." The boy didn't move. His hands curled into fists at his sides.
You left us.
I know.
You said you'd come back. You said you'd get settled and send for us. We waited. We waited for months.
I know. Patrick took a step forward. And nothing I say can make that right. I failed you. I failed my brother's children when they needed me most.
Then why should I believe anything you say now?
You shouldn't. Patrick's voice broke. I don't deserve your trust. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to know I never stopped looking, never stopped hoping. Caleb stood rigid on the porch. Hannah had moved behind him, one hand clutching his shirt, peering around him at the stranger who looked like their father. He's telling the truth. Jed's voice was quiet. I can see it.
You don't know that.
No, but I know what guilt looks like. I know what grief looks like. Jed set down his rifle, and I know that man has been carrying both for a very long time. Caleb looked at Jed, then at Patrick, then at his sister who was staring at their uncle with wide, uncertain eyes. Hannah, Caleb's voice was rough. Do you remember Uncle Patrick? She nodded slowly. He brought me a doll for my birthday, before Mama got sick. Do you remember what Mama said about him? She said he was a good man. Hannah's voice was small. She said he loved us. Caleb closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had shifted. You can stay for dinner. The words came out stiff, grudging. But that's all I'm promising. Patrick nodded. That's more than I deserve. Dinner was awkward. Patrick sat at the table, eating Grace's biscuits, answering questions in a voice that kept threatening to break. He told them about their parents, stories from before, happy memories that the children had been too young to remember or too hurt to hold on to. Your father used to sing, Patrick said. Couldn't carry a tune to save his life, but he sang anyway, every morning. Drove your mother crazy. Hannah almost smiled. I remember. He sang to the chickens. Said it made the eggs better. Did it? Not even a little. Patrick laughed. It was a wet sound. But he believed it did, and sometimes that's enough. Caleb said nothing. He ate mechanically, watching his uncle with guarded eyes. But he didn't tell him to leave. That was something. After dinner, Patrick stood. I should go. Find a place in town for the night.
You could stay here.
The words came out of Jed's mouth before he could stop them. It's a long ride back to Silver Bow. Patrick looked at him, at the children, at the small weathered cabin that had somehow become a home. I don't want to intrude.
You're not intruding.
Hannah's voice was small but certain.
Your family.
Patrick's face crumpled. Okay, he managed. Okay, I'll stay. That night, Jed found Caleb on the porch, staring at the stars. Can't sleep? Thinking too much. The boy didn't look at him. About Uncle Patrick, about the hearing, about everything. You want to talk about it? I don't know what I want. Caleb's voice was tired. Part of me wants to hate him, for leaving us, for not being there when we needed him. But another part remembers the man who brought your sister a doll for her birthday. Yeah, Caleb finally looked at him. How do you do it? Forgive people who hurt you? I don't know if I do. Jed sat down beside him. I spent 5 years hating God for taking my wife and son, hating the fever, hating myself for not being able to save them. That hate kept me alive, but it also kept me dead inside. What changed? You did. Jed's voice softened. You and Hannah. I saw you fighting for each other, and I realized that hate wasn't keeping me alive. It was killing me slower than the grief ever could. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. I'm scared, he finally admitted. About the hearing, about losing, about going back to the way things were. I know. What if Uncle Patrick's testimony isn't enough? What if nothing is enough? Then we figure out something else. Jed put a hand on the boy's shoulder. But we don't give up. We don't stop fighting, and we don't let fear make our decisions for us. Is that what your father taught you? No, Jed almost smiled. That's what you taught me. The day before they left for Helena, Hannah got sick. It started with a cough. Small at first, easy to dismiss. But by evening, she was burning with fever, her small body shaking with chills that no blanket could stop. No! Caleb's voice was raw with panic. No, 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 not again! Not her! Jed pressed his hand to Hannah's forehead. Too hot. Much too hot. Caleb, I need you to ride to town. Get Dr. Harwood, fast as you can. I can't leave her. You have to. Jed grabbed the boy's shoulders. I'll stay with her. I won't let anything happen. But she needs a doctor, and you're the fastest rider we have. Caleb's face was white. His hands were shaking. What if it's the fever? The same one that killed Mama and Papa? Then we catch it early, and we fight it. Jed's voice was steady, even though his heart was racing. But standing here arguing isn't helping. Go. Caleb went. The next hours were the longest of Jed's life. He sat beside Hannah's bed, cooling her forehead with wet cloths, watching her breathe, counting each rise and fall of her chest like it might be the last. She drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she recognized him. Sometimes she called for her mother. Mama? Her voice was tiny, broken. Mama, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart. Jed took her hand. But you're not alone. I'm right here. Where's Caleb? He went to get the doctor. He'll be back soon. Promise? Promise. She closed her eyes. Her hand tightened around his. Don't let them take me away. Please. Never. Jed's voice cracked. Never, Hannah. I'm not letting anyone take you anywhere. Mama said that too. Her words were slurred, fading. She said she'd always be here. But she left. They all leave. I'm not leaving. How do I know? Jed leaned closer. Because I made a promise, and I keep my promises. Always. She didn't respond. Her breathing evened out, slipping into something that looked like sleep. Jed stayed beside her, holding her hand, praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. Dr. Harwood arrived 3 hours later, Caleb right behind him. How long has she been like this? Harwood was already examining her, checking her pulse, listening to her breathing. Since this afternoon. Started with a cough, then the fever hit. Has she eaten anything unusual? Drank water from a new source? No, nothing different. Harwood frowned, continued his examination. The minutes stretched like hours. Finally, he straightened. It's not the fever. Caleb made a sound, half sob, half prayer. It's not the fever, Harwood repeated. It's pneumonia. Serious, but treatable if we act fast. What do we do? Keep her warm, keep her hydrated. I'll leave medicine, but she needs rest, complete rest. No travel, no stress, no excitement. Jed's heart sank. The hearing is tomorrow. Then you'll have to go without her. Harwood met his eyes. If you take that child on a 2-day journey in this condition, you'll kill her. I can't leave her. You can't take her. Then I'll stay. The words came out before Jed could think. I'll miss the hearing. The children are more important. No. Caleb's voice was sharp. You have to go. Caleb, if you don't show up, Whitfield wins by default. They'll take us anyway. The boy's face was pale but determined. I'll stay with Hannah. Uncle Patrick can stay too. You go to Helena and fight for us.
I can't leave you alone. We won't be alone. We'll have each other. Caleb stepped forward. You taught me that family means taking care of each other. Let me take care of my sister. Let me do this. Jed looked at the boy. At Hannah, sleeping fitfully in the bed. At Patrick, standing in the doorway with tears on his weathered face. I'll watch over them. Patrick's voice was rough. I failed them once. I won't fail them again. Please, Jed. Caleb's voice broke. You're the only one who can fight this. You're the only one Whitfield is afraid of. If you stay here, we lose everything. Jed closed his eyes. He thought about his wife, his son, the promises he'd made and couldn't keep. He thought about Caleb and Hannah, the promises he'd made and had to keep. Okay. The word felt like surrender and battle cry all at once. Okay. I'll go. Thank you. But Caleb, Jed gripped the boy's shoulders. If anything happens, anything at all, you send word. You ride to Helena yourself if you have to. You hear me? I hear you. And take care of your sister. I always do. Jed pulled him into a hug, fierce and tight and desperate. I'll be back, I promise. I know. Caleb's voice was muffled against his chest. You keep your promises. Jed rode out at dawn. He didn't look back. If he had, he might have seen Caleb standing on the porch, watching him go, one hand raised in farewell. He might have seen Patrick, arm around the boy's shoulders, steadying him. He might have seen Hannah, face pressed against the window, too weak to stand, but too stubborn to look away. He might have seen his family, small and broken and beautiful, believing in him even when belief seemed foolish. But he didn't look back. He kept his eyes on the road ahead, on Helena, on the fight that would decide everything. Helena was bigger than Jed remembered. 2 days of hard riding, barely stopping to rest, pushing his horse to the edge of exhaustion. He arrived at the territorial courthouse with dust in his throat and fire in his chest. The hearing was set for 10 o'clock.
He had 20 minutes. Clara Sutton met him at the door.
"You look terrible."
"Hannah's sick. Pneumonia." Jed's voice was raw. "Caleb's with her. Patrick, too."
"Patrick Brennan? The uncle?"
"He showed up last week. Long story." Jed pushed past her into the building.
"What am I walking into?"
"A slaughter." Clara fell into step beside him.
"Whitfield brought half the territory as witnesses. Businessmen, politicians, even a judge's wife. They're all going to testify that you're unfit."
"And our side?"
"Dr. Harwood sent a written statement. Sheriff Boone is here, but he's nervous. Pemberton," she hesitated. "Pemberton is sitting with Whitfield's people."
Jed stopped.
"What?" "He got to him. Whitfield. I don't know how, but Pemberton switched sides this morning."
The betrayal hit like a fist to the gut. Pemberton, who had warned him, who had seemed to care, gone. "Who's on the board?" "3 members. Chairman Porter seems fair. Clemens is in Whitfield's pocket. That leaves Reverend Michaels as the swing vote." "What do we know about Michaels?" "He's a true believer. Family values, moral righteousness, proper Christian upbringing." Clara's expression was grim.
"Which means he could go either way. A single man raising children isn't exactly traditional."
"Neither is selling them at auction."
"You and I know that. The question is whether Michaels does."
The courtroom was packed. Jed pushed through the crowd, found his seat at the front. Whitfield was already there, surrounded by lawyers and supporters, looking like a king holding court. Their eyes met. Whitfield smiled, the smile of a man who'd already won. "All rise." The board entered. 3 men in dark suits, faces carefully neutral. Chairman Porter took the center seat, flanked by Clemens and Michaels. "This hearing will come to order." Porter's voice was deep, authoritative. "We are here to review the placement of Caleb and Hannah Brennan, currently in the custody of Jedediah McAllister, pursuant to a complaint filed by Cornelius Whitfield III. He shuffled papers. "Mr. Whitfield, you may present your case." Whitfield's lawyer stood, expensive suit, polished shoes, the kind of man who'd never lost because he'd never taken a case he couldn't buy. "Thank you, Chairman Porter. We intend to demonstrate that Mr. McAllister obtained custody of these children through coercion and intimidation, that he is mentally unstable, financially insolvent, and wholly unfit to serve as a guardian. We have 17 witnesses prepared to testify to these facts." "Proceed." The first witness was a shopkeeper from Silver Bow. "I seen him at the auction." The man kept glancing at Whitfield. "He was wild-eyed, crazy-looking, shoved his way through the crowd like a madman." "Did he threaten anyone?" "Seemed like it."
"He grabbed Mr. Whitfield's wrist. Could have broke it."
"And in your professional opinion, does Mr. McAllister seem like a suitable guardian for 2 young children?" "No, sir. He seems dangerous." One by one, they came. Witnesses who claimed to have seen Jed threaten people. Witnesses who said he'd neglected the children. Witnesses who swore he was violent, unstable, unfit. All lies, every word. But the lies piled up, building a wall of false testimony that Jed didn't know how to break through. After the 12th witness, Chairman Porter called a recess. Jed found Clara outside the courtroom. "This is a disaster. It's not over." But her voice lacked conviction. "They're burying me. Every witness says the same thing. Different words, same story." Jed ran a hand through his hair. "How do I fight that?" "With the truth. The truth isn't enough. Then make it enough." Clara grabbed his arm. "When it's your turn to speak, don't give them facts. Give them feelings. Make them see those children as people, not paperwork. Make them understand what they'll be destroying if they rule against you." "I'm not good with words." "Then find the right ones." She released him. You've got 15 minutes. Jed walked outside. Needed air. Needed space. Needed to think. He found a bench in the shade and sat down. Closed his eyes. Tried to imagine what he would say, how he would say it. Nothing came. He thought about Caleb, about the boy who'd punched a grown man to protect his sister, who'd carried the weight of his family since he was 12 years old, who'd finally started to trust again. He thought about Hannah, about her nightmares and her cat and her biscuits with honey, about the way she'd climbed into his lap that first night like she belonged there, about how sick she was right now, fighting for her life while he fought for her future. He thought about his wife, his son, the family he'd buried on the hill behind his cabin, and he realized something. He wasn't fighting for custody papers or legal rights or territorial regulations. He was fighting for love. Pure, simple, stubborn love. The kind that didn't care about rules or money or what other people thought. The kind that saw two children being torn apart and said no. The kind that spent every last cent on strangers because they needed help and help was possible. That was his truth. That was his weapon. And that would have to be enough. The hearing resumed. Mr. McAllister, Chairman Porter's voice cut through the murmur. You may now present your defense. Jed stood. His legs felt unsteady. His mouth was dry. Every eye in the room was on him. I'm not a lawyer. His voice came out rough. I don't have fancy words or 17 witnesses paid to lie for me. Whitfield's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection! The witness is— Sit down. Porter's tone was sharp. You had your turn. Now it's his. The lawyer sat. Jed continued. I'm a rancher. I work with my hands. I raise horses and grow what food I can and try to make it through each winter without starving. He paused. I'm also a father. Or I was until 5 years ago. The room went quiet. I had a wife named Margaret, a son named William. Billy, we called him. He was 6 years old when the fever took him. Same fever that took my wife 3 days earlier. Jed's voice cracked, but he pushed through. I buried them both on the hill behind my cabin, carved the headstones myself. And I spent 5 years after that wondering why I was still alive when they weren't. He looked at the board, at Porter's carefully neutral expression, at Clemens, who wouldn't meet his eyes, at Michaels, who was leaning forward, listening. Then I went to Silver Bow to buy a horse, and I saw something that changed my life. He told them about the auction, about Caleb standing on that platform with his fists raised, ready to fight the whole world for his sister, about Hannah crying, clutching her doll, about to be sold to a man who saw her as property. I didn't plan to take them. I didn't think about it. I just knew that watching them be separated was wrong, that I couldn't live with myself if I let it happen. His voice steadied. So I spent every cent I had, $40, everything I owned, because those two children were worth more than money. Whitfield shifted in his seat. His lawyer was scribbling notes. Mr. Whitfield says I'm unfit. His witnesses say I'm violent, unstable, dangerous. Jed looked directly at Whitfield. But here's what they didn't tell you. They didn't tell you that Caleb hasn't had a nightmare since the second week, that he's learning to break colts and laughing while he does it, that for the first time in months he's acting like a 12-year-old instead of a man twice his age. He turned back to the board. They didn't tell you that Hannah is eating again, that she made biscuits from scratch last week and cried because they tasted like her mama's, that she adopted a barn cat named Biscuit and talks to it constantly and carries it everywhere, even though it clearly hates being carried. Someone in the crowd laughed, quickly stifled. They didn't tell you that 3 days ago, a man named Patrick Brennan showed up at my ranch, the children's uncle. He'd been searching for them for 6 months. ever since the fever nearly killed him too. He came not to take them away, but to help, to be part of whatever family we were building. Jed's voice dropped. They didn't tell you that right now, while I'm standing here, Hannah is lying in bed with pneumonia. She's 8 years old, and she's fighting for her life. And I'm not there because I had to be here. Because if I didn't show up, Mr. Whitfield would win by default. He stepped closer to the board's bench. You want to know what kind of man I am? I'm the kind of man who rode 2 days through the summer heat, not knowing if that little girl would still be alive when I got home. I'm the kind of man who left her brother in charge, because he asked me to, because he said I was the only one who could fight this. I'm the kind of man who made a promise to 2 children that nobody would ever separate them again. His voice rose. And I intend to keep that promise, no matter what this board decides, no matter what Mr. Whitfield throws at me. Those children are my family now, not because of papers or laws or custody agreements, because I chose them, and they chose me. And that's worth more than all the money in the territory. Silence. Then Reverend Michaels spoke. Mr. McAllister, you speak of family as if it's a choice. But family is ordained by God. Blood relations, proper marriages. How can you claim these children as family when you have no legal or biological connection to them? Jed met the Reverend's eyes. With respect, sir, I buried my blood family 5 years ago. And I've spent every day since then learning that blood isn't what makes a family. He paused. Love is. Sacrifice is. Showing up every single day, even when it's hard, even when you're scared, even when you don't know what you're doing. That's family. Michaels was quiet for a moment. And the girl's illness? You left a sick child to attend this hearing? I left a sick child with her brother, her uncle, and a doctor's care, because she asked me to fight for her, because her brother begged me not to give up. Jed's voice broke. I would rather be there. I would rather hold her hand and tell her everything's going to be okay. But if I lose this hearing, there won't be anything to go home to. Chairman Porter leaned forward. Mr. McAllister, you've made passionate arguments. But passion alone doesn't address the concerns raised by Mr. Whitfield's witnesses. Ask them if they've ever met those children. Jed's voice was sharp. Ask them if they've ever set foot on my ranch. Ask them if they've seen anything with their own eyes, or if they're just repeating what Whitfield told them to say. Those are serious accusations. So is trying to buy a child. The room erupted. Shouts, protests, Whitfield's lawyer demanding sanctions. Porter banged his gavel. Order! Order! The noise died down. Mr. Whitfield. Porter's voice was cold. You've had your witnesses speak on your behalf. Would you like to address these accusations directly? Whitfield stood, smooth, confident, unruffled. Mr. McAllister is clearly desperate. He's resorting to character attacks because he has no substantive defense. He smiled at the board. I am a respected member of this community. I have provided homes for dozens of children through the territorial system. My only interest is in the welfare of these 2 orphans. Then why didn't you take both? Every head turned. Caleb was standing in the doorway. Jed's heart stopped. The boy looked exhausted, dust-covered, pale, like he'd ridden through the night. Behind him, Patrick Brennan stood with his hand on Caleb's shoulder. This hearing is closed to the public. Whitfield's lawyer stepped forward. This child has no right. I have every right. Caleb walked down the aisle. His voice didn't waver. I'm Caleb Brennan. I'm one of the children you're deciding about, and I want to testify. Porter exchanged glances with the other board members. The hearing procedures don't typically allow. Please. Caleb stopped in front of the bench. I rode all night to get here. My sister is sick in bed. I left her because I had to be here. Because someone had to tell you the truth about what Mr. Whitfield really wants. Michael spoke first. Let the boy speak. Porter hesitated. then nodded.
"You have 5 minutes." Caleb turned to face the room. He looked so small standing there, so young. But his eyes were old and fierce and burning with something that wouldn't be extinguished. "Mr. Whitfield doesn't want to help us. He never did," Caleb's voice carried through the silent room. "At the auction, he bid on my sister. Just my sister. $15. Like she was a piece of furniture."
"That's a legitimate placement bid," Whitfield's lawyer interrupted.
"He didn't bid on me," Caleb kept going. "He didn't want me. I was trouble. A fighter. A problem. But Hannah was small and quiet and wouldn't fight back. He wanted a servant for his wife. Someone young enough to train, alone enough to control."
Whitfield's face reddened. "This is outrageous. The child is lying."
"I ain't lying," Caleb turned to face him. "I punched you in the face at that auction. You remember? Because you grabbed my sister's arm hard enough to leave bruises. You said she was coming with you whether she liked it or not. I said no such thing. You did. I heard you. And when I tried to stop you, your men held me down while you reached for her." The room was dead silent. Then Jed came. Caleb's voice softened. He didn't know us, didn't owe us anything, but he saw what was happening, and he stopped it. He spent every dollar he had to keep us together, not because he wanted workers or servants or anything else, because he thought it was right. He looked at the board. "I've been through 4 placements since my parents died. 4. Every single one tried to split us up. Every single one saw us as problems to be solved, not children to be loved." His voice cracked. "Jed is the first person who saw us as family. And if you take that away from us, if you give us to Mr. Whitfield or anyone else who wants to separate us, you're not protecting us. You're destroying us." "Caleb," Jed's voice was barely a whisper. The boy looked at him, tears streaming down his face. "I believe in you. You told me to believe in you, and I do. I believe you're going to win this. I believe we're going to go home together." His voice broke. "Please don't let me be wrong." Jed stood, crossed the room, pulled the boy into his arms. "You're not wrong." He held him tight. "You're not wrong." The board conferred for what felt like hours. In reality, it was 20 minutes. 20 minutes of hushed voices and shuffled papers, while Jed sat with Caleb, Patrick beside them, the whole room holding its breath. Finally, Porter stood. "This board has heard testimony from both sides. We have considered the evidence, the witnesses, and the extraordinary statement from young Mr. Brennan." He paused. "It is the decision of this board that the placement of Caleb and Hannah Brennan with Mr. Jedediah McAllister be made permanent. Mr. Whitfield's complaint is hereby dismissed." The room exploded. Cheers, protests, Whitfield shouting about appeals and corruption. His lawyer was on his feet, demanding reconsideration. Clemens was shaking his head in disgust. But Michaels was smiling, and Porter had that look of a man who'd finally done something right. "Order!" Porter banged his gavel. "This hearing is concluded. Mr. McAllister, you may take your family home." Caleb was sobbing. Patrick was crying. Clara Sutton was already scribbling in her notebook, capturing every detail. And Jed just held the boy who'd ridden all night to save his family. Held him, and let his own tears fall. "We won." Caleb's voice was muffled against his chest. "We actually won." "Yeah, we won." "Can we go home now? Hannah needs us." Jed pulled back, looked at the boy's exhausted face, at Patrick, waiting with tears on his weathered cheeks, at the doorway where freedom waited. "Yeah, son. Let's go home." They rode hard. 2 days there, 2 days back. Jed pushed the pace,
fear gnawing at his gut with every mile. Hannah was sick. Hannah was fighting. Hannah needed them. When the cabin finally appeared, Jed was off his horse before it stopped moving. Dr. Harwood met him at the door. "How is she?" "Fever broke this morning." Harwood's face was tired but relieved. "She's asking for you." Jed pushed past him into the cabin. Hannah was sitting up in bed, pale, weak, but alive. So alive. "Jed." Her voice was tiny but strong. "Did we win?" He crossed the room in 3 steps, pulled her into his arms, held her like she might disappear if he let go. "Yes, sweetheart. We won." "Is Caleb okay?" "I'm right here." Caleb appeared in the doorway. He looked like he might collapse, but he was smiling. "I'm right here, Hannah." She reached for him. He came. And then they were all holding each other, crying, laughing, existing in a single perfect moment that made everything worth it. Patrick stood in the doorway, watching. His eyes were wet. "Thank you." Jed looked at him over Hannah's head. "For staying with her. For being here." "I failed them once." Patrick's voice was rough. "I wasn't going to fail them again." That night, they sat around the table together. Jed, Caleb, Hannah, Patrick. 4 people who'd been broken by loss and found by love. "What happens now?" Caleb asked. "Now we live." Jed looked around the table. "We fix the barn. We get that cow Hannah's been asking about. We become a family." "We already are a family." Hannah's voice was matter-of-fact. "We just didn't have a name for it before." Jed smiled. "What do you want to call it?" She thought about this seriously. "The McAllister Brennans, because we're both." "The McAllister Brennans." Caleb tested the words. "I like it." "Me too," Patrick nodded. "If you'll have me." "Your family." Hannah reached for his hand. "Family stays." Outside, the sun was setting over the mountains. The horses were settling in their corral. The barn cat was probably terrorizing mice in the hay. And inside, around a table too small for 4, but somehow perfect anyway, a family sat together. Not by blood, not by law, by choice. And that made all the difference. Jed looked at them, these 3 people who had become his world, his purpose, his reason for getting up in the morning. "I love you." The words came out before he could stop them. "All of you." Caleb's eyes went wide. Hannah smiled. Patrick ducked his head to hide his tears. "We love you too." Hannah climbed out of her chair, into his lap. Forever and ever. Forever and ever. It wasn't a promise he could guarantee. Life was uncertain. The future was unknowable. There would be more battles, more challenges, more moments when everything seemed impossible. But right now, in this moment, with his family around him, Jed McAllister knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was home, and he would never, never let that go. The weeks after the hearing passed like a dream Jed was afraid to wake from. Hannah's strength returned slowly. First sitting up in bed, then walking to the table for meals, then chasing Biscuit around the yard, while Caleb pretended not to watch her every step. "She's fine." Jed caught the boy hovering by the window for the 3rd time that morning. "The doctor said she's fully recovered." "I know." "Then stop worrying." "I'm not worrying." Caleb's jaw tightened. "I'm just making sure." Jed understood. He did the same thing himself, checking on Hannah 3 times a night, listening for coughs that didn't come, holding his breath every time she sneezed. Some fears didn't disappear just because the danger passed. Patrick had stayed. Nobody asked him to. Nobody told him he could. He just kept finding reasons to postpone his departure, kept making himself useful around the ranch, kept showing up at meals with that hopeful, uncertain expression that reminded Jed of a stray dog waiting to be kicked. You don't have to earn your place. Jed found him repairing fence posts one morning, working before dawn. Your family. That's not conditional. Old habits. Patrick drove another nail. After everything that happened, I keep expecting you to change your mind. About what? About wanting me here. Patrick stopped working, met Jed's eyes. I abandoned them. Those children. I know I was sick. I know I couldn't help it. But I still left them alone when they needed me most. You'd have every right to hate me. Do they hate you? Patrick was quiet for a moment. No. At least, I don't think so. Caleb still watches me like he's waiting for me to disappear again. But Hannah... His voice softened.
Hannah asked if I could teach her the songs her father used to sing.
What did you tell her? I told her I only knew one, the one Sean used to sing to the chickens. A wet laugh escaped him. She said that was perfect. Jed clapped him on the shoulder. Then stop fixing fences and go teach her the song. Patrick nodded, set down his hammer, walked toward the cabin where Hannah's voice was already floating through the open window, chattering to Biscuit about the proper way to catch mice. Jed watched him go, thought about second chances and broken things, and how sometimes the cracks were what made something beautiful. The cavalry buyers came in July. Captain Morrison returned just as he'd promised. 3 of his men rode with him, all of them straight-backed and stern-faced, examining the horses like they were choosing weapons for war. You've done good work. Morrison ran his hand along a bay mare's flank. Better than last year. Had help this time. Jed nodded toward Caleb, who was leading another horse from the barn. Boy's got a gift. Morrison watched the boy work. The sure hands, the calm voice, the way the horse responded to him, like they shared a language nobody else could hear. Your son? The question hit Jed like a punch to the chest. Not because it hurt, because it didn't. Yeah, the word came out steady, sure. Yeah, he's my son. Caleb looked up. He'd heard. His face did something complicated, cycling through surprise and uncertainty, and finally settling on something that looked almost like pride. Morrison nodded. He'll make a fine horseman someday, if he wants it. That'll be his choice. Good. Morrison turned back to business. I'll take 5 horses, $60 each, $300 total. Jed's heart nearly stopped. $300, more than he'd made in 5 years combined. Enough to fix everything, buy everything, build everything they'd dreamed of. Deal. They shook hands. That night, Jed spread the money on the table. 60 bills. More cash than the children had ever seen in one place. Is that real? Hannah's eyes were huge. Is that all ours? It's all ours. Caleb picked up a bill, turned it over in his hands. What are we going to do with it? First, we're fixing the barn properly. New doors, new roof, no more leaks. Jed looked at Hannah. Second, we're getting that cow you've been asking about. Really? Her face lit up. A real cow? For Biscuit's milk? A real cow. She launched herself at him, arms around his neck, face buried in his shoulder, laughing and crying at the same time. What else? Caleb asked. His voice was careful, guarded, like he was afraid to hope for too much. What do you want? The boy was quiet for a long moment. Books. Hannah should learn to read properly. And I want to learn about horse breeding. The real science of it, not just the practical stuff. Books it is. Jed pulled out a stack of bills.
And there's enough left over for supplies, savings, and whatever else comes up.
No more worrying about winter? No more worrying about winter. Caleb's shoulders dropped. Just a fraction. Just enough to show the weight he'd finally set down. Thank you. Don't thank me. You earned this. You and the horses you helped train. Jed pushed the bills toward him. Count it. Make sure I didn't miss any. The boy's hand shook as he handled the money, but he was smiling, really smiling. The kind of smile Jed hadn't seen since that first day at the auction when everything seemed impossible. Maybe, Jed thought, impossible was just another word for not yet. The cow arrived 3 days later. She was brown and gentle and absolutely massive, and Hannah named her Princess Buttercup within 30 seconds of seeing her. Princess Buttercup? Caleb raised an eyebrow. That's the best you could come up with? She looks like a buttercup. Hannah wrapped her arms around the cow's neck.
And she's definitely a princess. Look at her eyelashes.
The cow mooed. Biscuit hissed from a safe distance. I think your cat is jealous, Patrick observed. Biscuit will learn to share. Hannah released the cow, scooped up the cat. They're going to be best friends. You'll see. Nobody had the heart to tell her that cats and cows rarely became best friends. Besides, stranger things had happened. This whole family was proof of that. The letter came on a Tuesday. Jed was in the barn when Patrick found him, envelope in hand, face pale. This arrived for you, from Helena. The territorial seal, same red wax, same official weight. Jed's stomach dropped. What is it? I don't know. I didn't open it. Jed took the envelope, broke the seal, unfolded the paper inside. His hands started shaking. Jed? Patrick stepped closer. What's wrong? What does it say? It says... Jed had to read it twice, 3 times. It says the Territorial Board has formally approved our family. Permanent custody. No more reviews, no more inspections, no more hearings. That's good, right? There's more. Jed looked up. It says Cornelius Whitfield has been removed from the Territorial Board of Directors, pending investigation into corruption and bribery charges. Patrick's jaw dropped. They got him? They got him, Jed laughed. It came out wild, almost hysterical. Clara Sutton's articles, the investigation she demanded after the hearing. It worked. It actually worked. We should tell the children. Yeah, we should. They found Caleb in the corral, working with a young colt. Hannah was perched on the fence, offering advice that the colt ignored entirely. You're doing it wrong, she told her brother. You have to whisper nicer. I'm whispering as nice as I can. Whisper nicer. That's not a thing. It is too. Family meeting, Jed's voice cut through their bickering. Inside, now. They gathered around the table, 4 people who had become 5 when you counted Biscuit, who had claimed a permanent spot on Hannah's lap. What's wrong? Caleb's face had gone pale. Is it Whitfield? Is he coming back? No, Jed held up the letter. He's not coming back. Ever. He read them the contents, every word, watched their faces change from fear to confusion to hope to disbelief. It's over? Hannah's voice was tiny. Really over? Really over. He can't take us away? No one can take you away. Not Whitfield, not the board, not anyone. Jed set down the letter. You're mine. Legally, officially, permanently. And nothing's ever going to change that. Hannah burst into tears. Caleb didn't cry, but his hands were shaking, and his voice came out rough when he spoke. I didn't think... I couldn't let myself believe... He stopped, swallowed hard. I was so scared, every day, every night, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for someone to come and take it all away. I know. Jed reached across the table, gripped the boy's hand. I was scared too. You were? Terrified. every single day. He squeezed tighter. But I was more terrified of giving up, of letting fear win, of losing you without a fight. Caleb's composure cracked. The tears he'd been holding back finally fell. "I'm tired." The words came out broken. "I'm so tired of being scared, of being strong, of pretending everything's okay when it isn't." "Then stop pretending." Jed pulled the boy close. "You don't have to be strong anymore. Not alone. That's what family is for." Caleb sobbed against his shoulder. Months of fear and grief and suppressed emotion pouring out in a flood that soaked through Jed's shirt. Hannah climbed off her chair, wrapped her arms around both of them. Patrick joined the embrace, his weathered face wet with tears. 4 people, 1 family. Finally, whole. Summer turned to fall. The new barn doors hung straight and true. Princess Buttercup provided enough milk to keep Biscuit fat and Hannah happy. The books Caleb wanted arrived from a shop in Helena, and Jed found him reading by lamplight every night, soaking up knowledge like dry ground soaking up rain. "You're going to ruin your eyes." Jed leaned against the doorframe. "That's what candles are for." Caleb didn't look up from his book. "Did you know that Arabian horses have 1 fewer vertebra than other breeds? That's why they can carry more weight relative to their size." "I did not know that." "It's fascinating." The boy finally looked up. His eyes were bright with excitement. "There's so much to learn. About breeding, about genetics, about how to produce the perfect horse for different purposes. I want to know all of it." "Then learn all of it." "You don't think it's stupid? Wanting to read books instead of just working with my hands?" "I think the best horseman I've ever known combined both." Jed crossed the room, sat on the edge of the bed. "Knowledge without experience is useless, but experience without knowledge is limited. You're building something better than either." Caleb was quiet for a moment. "Pa wanted me to take over the farm before he died. He said I was meant for the land, not for books." "What do you think?" "I think," the boy hesitated, "I think I can be both, a rancher and a scholar. Someone who works with horses and understands why they work the way they do." "Then be both." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Jed ruffled his hair. "You get to choose who you become, Caleb. That's the whole point of freedom." The boy smiled. It transformed his whole face. "Thanks, Jed." "For what?" "For letting me choose." Clara Sutton visited in October. She rode up to the ranch on a paint horse that had clearly seen better days, her notebook tucked under her arm, her hair escaping from its pins as usual. "Miss Sutton," Jed met her at the fence. "This is a surprise. A good one, I hope." She dismounted, patted her horse's neck. "I wanted to see how the family was doing, for a follow-up article." "Another article?" "The original piece about the hearing got more response than anything I've ever written. People want to know what happened next. They want to know if the happy ending held." "And if it didn't?" "Then I'd write about that too." Clara's eyes were sharp. "The truth, Mr. McAllister, whatever it is. That's all I've ever promised." He led her inside. The children were at the table, working on lessons. Hannah was practicing her letters, tongue poking out in concentration. Caleb was reading aloud to her, correcting her pronunciation, explaining words she didn't know. They looked up when Clara entered. Hannah's face lit up. "The newspaper lady!" "That's me," Clara smiled. "You remember me?" "You wrote the story about Jed, the one that said he was a hero." "I wrote that he was a man who did something heroic. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Heroes are in fairy tales. Men who do heroic things are real." Clara sat down across from her. "Real is harder and more important." Hannah considered this seriously. I think Jed is both. Jed's throat tightened. He turned away, pretending to check the stove. Clara interviewed all of them. The children about their new life, Patrick about his journey back to his family, Jed about the challenges and triumphs of building something from nothing. One last question. Clara looked at Caleb. If you could tell other children in your situation one thing, what would it be? The boy thought for a long moment. Don't give up. His voice was quiet but firm. Even when it seems impossible. Even when everyone says you can't. Because sometimes someone will see you. Someone will fight for you. Someone will choose you when nobody else will. And if no one does, then you fight for yourself and for the people you love. Caleb looked at Jed. Until someone does. Clara wrote it all down. Her article appeared 3 weeks later. Jed read it aloud to the family after dinner, his voice catching on the parts about Hannah's illness and Caleb's testimony, and the moment when a boy rode all night to save his sister. She made it sound so dramatic. Caleb's face was red. I just did what I had to do. That's what makes it dramatic, Patrick smiled. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things because they have to. That's the whole story of the human race. I like the part about Biscuit. Hannah held up the cat. She said Biscuit was an important member of the family. Biscuit is an important member of the family. See? Hannah kissed the cat's head. Newspaper official. The first snow came on a Tuesday. Jed woke to find the world transformed. White covered everything, smoothing edges, hiding imperfections, making the ranch look like something from a painting. Hannah was already outside, making snow angels, while Biscuit watched disapprovingly from the porch. She's going to catch cold. Caleb appeared at Jed's elbow. Probably. Shouldn't we stop her? Probably, Jed smiled. But some things are worth a little cold. They watched her together. This little girl who'd been through so much, who'd lost so much, who still found joy in snow angels and barn cats and cows named Princess Buttercup. Jed? Yeah? I've been thinking. Caleb's voice was careful. About what you said at the hearing, about your wife and son. What about them? You never talk about them. Not really. You told the board the facts, but you never tell us the stories. The boy hesitated. I was wondering if maybe you wanted to. Jed was quiet for a long moment. Her name was Margaret. The words came out slowly, painfully, like pulling splinters from deep beneath the skin. Maggie, I called her. She had this laugh that could fill a room, make you feel like everything was going to be okay, even when it wasn't. How did you meet her? At a dance, in Ohio, before I came west. She was the prettiest girl in the room, and I was too scared to talk to her. Spent the whole night watching her from across the room, like an idiot. What happened? She walked up to me. Jed almost smiled at the memory. Said if I was going to stare at her all night, I might as well ask her to dance. So I did. And that was it. I knew right then I was going to marry her. And Billy? Billy was... Jed's voice cracked. Billy was everything good about both of us. Maggie's laugh, my stubbornness. He followed me everywhere. Pa, can I help? Pa, let me try. Pa, watch me. He sounds like Hannah. He does. Jed looked at the little girl, still making snow angels, still filling the world with her brightness. That's part of why I couldn't walk away that day at the auction. I saw you protecting her, the way I would have protected him, the way I tried to protect him and couldn't. You couldn't have saved them. Caleb's voice was firm. The fever, it wasn't your fault. I know. In my head, I know. Jed touched his chest. But in here,
I still wonder. If I'd gotten a doctor sooner, if I'd prayed harder, if I'd been better.
You're the best man I've ever known. Caleb said it simply, factually, like it was obvious. Jed couldn't speak. You saved us, me and Hannah. You gave us a home when nobody else would. You fought for us when everyone said you couldn't win. The boy's voice strengthened. Billy would be proud of you. Your wife would be proud of you. And I'm proud of you too. Jed pulled the boy into a hug, held him tight while the snow fell around them, and Hannah's laughter echoed across the yard. Thank you. The words were muffled against Caleb's shoulder. For what? For being my son. Caleb went still. Then his arms tightened around Jed. Thank you for being my father. They stood like that. Hannah came running, demanding they join her in the snow, until Patrick emerged from the cabin with hot cider and warm blankets. Until Biscuit finally deigned to venture off the porch and immediately regretted it. A family in the snow, laughing, playing, being together. That night, after the children were asleep, Jed climbed the hill behind the cabin. 2 crosses stood there, 2 names carved into wood, 2 people he'd loved and lost and would never stop missing. I brought you something. He set a small wildflower at the base of each cross. I know it's not much, but I thought you should know. He sat down in the snow, didn't feel the cold. I found them, Maggie, or they found me. 2 children who needed a home, who needed someone to fight for them. His voice cracked. I wasn't looking, wasn't trying, wasn't even sure I wanted to keep living. But there they were, and I couldn't walk away. The wind stirred the crosses, almost like a response. I'm not trying to replace you, either of you. You're irreplaceable. What we had was irreplaceable. He touched Billy's cross. But I think you'd understand. I think you'd want me to love again, to live again. He looked at the stars, the same stars that had watched over his wife and son, that would watch over his new family. They need me, and I need them. And together, we're building something good, something worth protecting. His voice steadied. So that's what I'm going to do. Protect them, love them, be their father in every way that matters. He stood, touched both crosses one more time. I'll never forget you, never stop loving you, but I have to move forward now. For them. For me. He paused. For all of us. Then he walked back down the hill, to the cabin, to the family waiting inside. To home. Christmas morning arrived with chaos and laughter and the smell of Hannah's burned first attempt at gingerbread. It's not that bad. She held up the blackened cookies. Biscuit will eat them. Biscuit won't eat those. Caleb examined one skeptically. They could be used as weapons. They're not weapons. I could probably kill a man with this cookie. Caleb! Children, Jed intervened. It's Christmas. We're supposed to be nice to each other. He started it. I'm just stating facts. Patrick emerged from the back room with an armload of packages wrapped in brown paper and string. Who wants presents? The squabbling stopped instantly. They gathered around the tree, such as it was, a scraggly pine that Caleb had dragged in from the woods, decorated with paper chains and dried berries, and a star Hannah had made from tin scraps. It's not much. Jed looked at the small pile of gifts. Money's still tight, even with the horse sales. It's perfect. Hannah's eyes were shining. It's the best tree ever. They opened presents one by one. A new dress for Hannah, blue with white lace. Books for Caleb, 3 of them, thick and heavy with knowledge. A pocket watch for Patrick, simple but solid. For Jed, a drawing Hannah had made of their family. 5 stick figures holding hands, including one with cat ears that was apparently Biscuit. I love it. Jed's voice was thick. It's going on the mantle. Right next to Mama and Billy? He looked at the little girl who had somehow become his daughter. Right next to them. But there was one more gift. Caleb pulled it from behind the tree. A small wooden box, carefully carved, with initials on the lid. I made it. The boy's voice was nervous. It's not much. I'm not very good with wood. But I wanted to give you something real. Jed opened the box. Inside was a single piece of paper. A drawing, clearly done by Hannah's hand. But the words underneath were in Caleb's careful script. Certificate of Family. We hereby declare that Jedediah McAllister is our father in all the ways that matter. By choice, by love, by everything that makes a family real. Underneath, 2 signatures. Caleb Brennan McAllister. Hannah Brennan McAllister. Jed couldn't breathe. We talked about it. Caleb's voice rushed out. Me and Hannah. We wanted to make it official. Not legally, we know that's already done, but officially official. In our hearts. We're McAllisters now. Hannah's face was serious. That's our name. Forever. Jed looked at the certificate, at the 2 children who had become his family. At Patrick, watching with tears streaming down his face. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Hannah climbed into his lap. Say we're really yours, and you're really ours, and nothing will ever change that. You're really mine, Jed's voice broke, and I'm really yours, and nothing will ever change that. She wrapped her arms around his neck. Caleb joined the embrace. Patrick hovered nearby until Hannah reached out and pulled him in too. 4 people, 1 family, bound not by blood, but by something stronger, by choice, by sacrifice, by love. Merry Christmas, Hannah whispered. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Outside, the snow fell soft and silent. Inside, the fire crackled warm and bright. And on the mantel, next to the photographs of Margaret and Billy, a child's drawing took its rightful place. 5 stick figures holding hands. A family, complete and whole and unbreakable. Because family wasn't about where you came from. Family was about where you belonged. And Jedediah McAllister, who had lost everything and found it again in the most unexpected way, finally belonged somewhere. Finally had a home. Finally had a reason to believe that the best things in life weren't given. They were chosen. And that made all the difference.